Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.
Well, hello, and welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king, and that is the way it is today. And we have a very, very, very special guest with us, Mr. Martin Duffy. He was one of the original Johnnie Walker Scotch brand ambassadors, and he finally achieved the title of Senior Master of Whiskey for the entire Diageo portfolio.
I had to kill a lot of other masters of whiskey to get that title. It's just like Highlander. I had to behead each other all the time. It's horrible.
Absorb their soul.
To get their knowledge as you do it too. That's
absorb their knowledge.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you've worked with so many fantastic big name brands. It reads like a top 10 list. You've conducted master classes at past whiskey fests in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. You actually are the co-producer of the annual Chicago Independent Spirits.
I retired back in 2018 was my last one. I stepped back and my niece took it over.
Oh, okay.
Along with Dave Schmier. Dave Schmier really runs that show with formerly of Redemption Rye, now with his Deadwood Bourbon. Yes.
Yep, I was going to say we have one of the fans of the show that actually is a fan of theirs, so that's pretty interesting. Well, and you are also the lone U.S. brand representative for Glencairn, these lovely whiskey glasses that we all taste out of.
Still am, yes.
And you also co-host A Sip of Knowledge with Liz Rhodes and Lou Bryson as well too. Yes. So you have this long entry list of wonderful names and jobs that you have done and handled and everything. That's fantastic. We can't appreciate you taking the time out of your day to stop in with us and talk to some of our fans and get to know a little bit more about you and the Glencairn glass as well too, because you guys are celebrating 20 years, if I'm not correct, this year.
That's correct. 20 years of this glass.
Sorry, I just got told I looked like an English professor at the University of Massachusetts.
Very much so. In fact, I could see you in like a very Tudor kind of outfit with the big puffy shoulders, with a big flat hat. You would fit in right at court.
I'll take it. Everyone in the chat, thanks for stopping in. I see Oscar, AJ Lopez. I saw Retta in there. I saw Ice House. I saw a couple of you. Thank you for stopping in early. What are all of you in the chat drinking? Good to see you, Ed. Thanks for stopping as well, too. What are you guys drinking today, Mike, Benjamin, and Martin? What are you drinking before we get started here?
Gents?
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm having some Pete's Beast.
Pete's Beast.
Pete's Beast. Independently bottled, heavily peated, heavily sherried Scotch whiskey.
Lovely.
I'm doing a little Ransom. This is a Ransom did the Emerald, which is a recreation of a single pot still Irish whiskey from 1865, I believe. It was a mash bill that they found. They worked with Dave Wondrich and created this. It's quite good. It's really quite tasty.
It's nice when you go back and try some of those old recipes and they could actually turn out really nice. Like, I think it was Shackleton did it, and I was like, it's okay. It's 100 years old, like it's the replica of the recipe was nice, but it wasn't anything like blow your doors off like you were hoping for.
Well, you got to remember too, just because it's a reproduction doesn't mean it was a reproduction of a great whiskey.
That's.
I mean, it could have been the Shackleton whiskey because, Shackleton could have said, "Hey, look, we're on a budget. Well, it's the cheapest whiskey we can bring on the trip." So, that's that kind of.
No, that works. I'm going to spin it back just for a second with a couple questions. What was the first spirit? Because I know you've worked with stuff other than whiskey, and it can be a whiskey. What was the first spirit that you actually got excited about that kind of puts you down the path to wanting to work with work with all the great people we've worked with?
Well, there's two, and like we were talking before the show. I used to bartend in the '90s, and I really got into drinking Manhattans, but I wasn't really particular about what whiskey. In fact, this is the early '90s, so it wasn't like there was a huge selection of quality bourbons to choose from. But the small batch bourbons came out, and I found out that Booker's was the strongest. Now, again, I had freaking no idea about what proof meant or anything else. I guess everyone said, that's the strongest. I go, really? Sweet. Make me a Manhattan. And it was the Bar Louie here in Chicago that was 10-ounce martini glasses that they filled to the brim and a little over. Got a little dome. So I'd have 3 of those babies. And look back, I go, 30. I had 30 ounces of booze after a bar shift. So it was amazing I'm still alive. But a couple of years later, I was working at a restaurant in the River North area, and one of the owners called me over to the bar after I was getting cut early and said, come in and have a drink with me. And I did, and it was Springbank 21-year-old.
Ooh.
And this was like nectar of the gods. This was so good. And it really turned my head around as far as, towards Scotch. And then I don't know how or where, but it was Johnnie Walker Black, which was a lot more affordable and easier to find than Springbank 21. And ever since, Johnnie Walker Black is still, my anchor whiskey. When I travel, every hotel bar has Johnnie Walker Black.
Mm-hmm.
No thinking, no second guessing, no humming and hawing. Mr. Bartender, I'll have a Johnnie Walker Black on the rocks, please. Thank you very much. And keep them coming.
That is nice, like you said, when that's your anchor, because it is everywhere you go. That's pretty fantastic. I don't mean to be coughing at everybody.
And it's a high quality. The only ones I've ever seen turn their nose up to Johnnie Walker Black are guys who are so into, and if you're one of them, excuse me if I'm insulting you, but
it's okay.
You become, those single malt snobs who don't drink. If it isn't a single malt, I don't want to try it. If it isn't under 18 years of age, I don't want to try it. And I go, you're an idiot. Yeah. I mean, 2 guys I know, Charlie McLean and Dave Broom, 2 of my favorite whiskey writers, both claim this is their stranded on an island whiskey. And I agree. I'd be stranded on an island with a lot of Johnnie Walker Black.
And it's just because you're mentioning the black. What is your comparison? How do you feel about the red versus the black? Because I think the black is what I view as more my standard rather than the red.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I know red gets crapped down a lot because it's it's younger and it doesn't have the cachet that even black has. Cachet for what I consider a moderately priced Scotch whiskey. Mm-hmm. But Red Label, you try that with soda and a twist of lemon, especially during the summer, it's really refreshing.
Yes.
I did hundreds of whiskey dinners, and I would serve Red Label on crushed ice with soda, twist of lemon, and a champagne flute. And it was a great little walk around, little aperitif, get your appetite going, and you serve it with some seafood appetizers. Nice, very good. Nice.
So you can tell you've done the whole thing because you're not only are you drinking it, you're pairing it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If you guys want, I still have the digital. Well, actually, it's for the classic. Well, it's not for Johnnie Walker, but I still have the digital. It was a cookbook that Diageo was going to put out, and they never printed it. But it's a digital copy of it, and it's about 119 pages long. Talking about either cooking with or pairing the classic malts. with food. Nice.
I feel like that's something they should go back to and bring out. 'Cause that's just
Dude, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, Diageo is like a big dumb dog. You have to love it, but it does some really stupid things. And that's one of them. The fact they didn't do that, don't even get me started on that. Like, there's tons of things.
That's funny. Now, we were mentioning, like, in the past of different things that you have done. We were talking before that you actually got sent to be a brand ambassador for the Republic of Ireland.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about a little bit of what you did there? Because when I was reading about it, it sounds like you helped educate the better part of Ireland in 2 years about whiskey.
Well, I kind of did. I mean, I guess I did, because there wasn't really a lot of education going on at the time. Mm-hmm. It was one of the cool things. It was one of the smart things that Diageo Ireland, and Diageo is just like a giant. It's like the United States, and every market, it's its own little state. So they come up with their own ideas. But it was good. They wanted somebody to come over who could talk to Irish bartenders. And talk to them about cocktails, which nobody in Ireland over there, a complicated cocktail was like a vodka and cranberry, and the whole idea: do you add the lime before or after the cranberry? You go, dude, just whenever. It all going in the same glass. It's crazy. It was really funny that it was so foreign to a lot of folks, but there were a growing pocket of guys who were really getting into cocktails. But oddly enough, I found that whiskey was not a huge thing. Now, whiskey sold really well, but mainly in the touristy areas, and it was where, Ireland has about 5 million people on the entire island, but they get about 8 to maybe even at its zenith in the last 10 years, probably up to about 10 million tourists. And those folks come in, what's the first thing they're going to drink? In fact, a lot of bartenders would tell me, first thing they'd order is a Guinness. And then they'd order a vodka and soda and something. They go, they had to have a Guinness, though, in Ireland. And they had to drink a Jameson, because Jameson, oddly enough, a lot of their locals did not drink Jameson. Jameson was not the popular Irish whiskey. Powers, Crested 10 was really big over there among working class. What else? Oddly enough, so my job over there was trying to really promote Bushmills. I went over in 2008, and that was Bushmills' 400th anniversary. And we had a big event here in Chicago before I left at Soldier Field. We brought in Cullum Egan from Bushmills, and had 400 little electric candles lit up, and he gave a toast with an Irish band behind him. It was really big. And then I go over to Ireland, and the day comes and gone, the actual day, which I think was April 26th, I think. The actual anniversary comes and goes. I asked my boss, I said, hey, did you do anything yesterday? Anything at all? Did you do anything yesterday? Was it yesterday on your calendar at all? He goes, no, why would it? It was only the 400th anniversary of Bushmills. You're only Irish whiskey, and you're in Ireland. I don't believe how it just, no, it's just an anniversary. And then the next year they spend billions on the 250th birthday of Arthur Guinness. And I go, fuckers, that was 400 years over there. It did nothing. I don't know.
That's crazy.
But it was tough, and it was weird too. You guys probably all know the stigma that Bushmills has being the Protestant whiskey, which was kind of bullshit. Cullum Egan was, a good old Catholic boy from Laois, and one time I was up there at Bushmills with him. There's a group of masters of whiskey actually, and we're all in the Bushmills Inn, and all of a sudden we hear drumming, And like, it sounds like a parade outside. Hey, there's a parade. Hey, what's the big occasion? Well, let's go out there. And he goes, no, Marty, you should stay here. And I go, why? What's the matter? There's a parade. How many times is there a parade in Northern Ireland? I've never seen one. No. You don't want to go out there, Marty. Stay here. You want to stay here. And why? What's going on? And he goes, hey, it's the Protestants. It's the marching season. They go around drumming and kind of showing that they're it's kind of a fuck you to the Catholics. I said, motherfuckers, let's go out there. A little Chicago tune-up. Let's go. Come on, little Catholic boy. And no. But so, anyways, I had to go down to Cork.
Okay.
Where, very
history.
Very pro-Catholic, and I'm figuring, hey, I'm a Catholic boy from the U.S. Guys, I have immunity, right? But I'm still pushing this, what they call the Protestant whiskey, to a degree. They didn't give me as much shit as foreigners did, actually.
The foreigners.
Yeah. There was some French guy at a hotel who brought it up, and I thought, what the fuck? What are you, a Huguenot or something? Shut up. Don't give me a hard time. It's hard enough. I'm a foreigner, a stranger in a strange land here.
It's a weird time for you to be taking shots at me, buddy.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, Frenchie, I had to give a lot of them, hey, you'd be goose stepping if it weren't for us.
They love that.
I know. So one of the things you left off is I worked for Benedictine for 18 months, and the French are very nice to a degree, but at the same time they want to give me shit. Oh, baby. I'll give you a piece of Swiss cheese that you won't forget this. Francois. Anyway, it was a great time, and I made a lot of really great connections. Also, it gave me an opportunity to use they have 9 bank holidays over there, which is, like Halloween. This today is a bank holiday in Ireland. So they have the day off today. No matter when Halloween is, they have that Monday off. Or maybe it's next Monday. I don't know. Maybe it's next Monday. So you had these 9 long weekends. And so I'd either go to different points of Ireland for the weekend, or Aer Lingus was like 35 euros to fly to Stockholm, Rome, Paris, Berlin, went to Prague and Budapest. And then again, too, the other nice thing, another benefit, was all the brands that Diageo owned. I represented them. I was their spirits ambassador, since everyone at Guinness really just knows about Guinness. That's why they brought somebody over to talk about everything else. So I went to I'd go to Schiedam, to the Kettle One distillery.
Oh, nice.
Which was great. The Nolet distillery, I should say, where they make Kettle One. Or we went down, they got the rights to distribute Grand Marnier, so I went down to both Paris and Cognac. And I went into their cognac vaults and saw the tons full of really old cognac, and we drink it, and
Okay, sorry, I'm jealous when you're wandering around old cognac things.
I'm jealous of myself. Just wishing I was still there.
Like anytime you're waiting 15 to 20 years before you get a product. It's wonderful to see what happens, and reflect on all that time, because there's not much stuff you're gonna make, especially in today's world where it's like, well, we'll worry about it 20 years from now. It's more like we'll worry about it in 6 months. We have issues.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's especially over in Europe, especially in Scotland, where they do have whiskey that was made before I was born. In fact, if you ever have a chance, I don't know if he still has how much stock he has. I haven't seen George Grant from Glenfarclas. is an old buddy of mine, but I haven't seen him in a year or two since he doesn't come over to the States as much as he used to. But one time I was over there, and I brought my brother and his wife and their son, and I was with Gregor Katnack and his wife. And we go in, and this is before he released the family casks. You guys are all familiar with those?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we each got a whiskey from the year of our birth.
Aww.
So, I mean, my brother is 7 years older than me, and I'm 57. So it was pretty cool, just to have. I mean, we just got a sample, mind you. Though later on, George did give me a bottle of the 1963. Hello. Eat your heart out.
Feel like all of a
Tell us
sudden
about that one.
I feel like it's gonna come out from back behind you, and it's like, look at this lovely bottle I have right here.
Hello, here it is. No, it's locked away.
So out of all these steps and jobs that you've had, leading up to this point, which of those do you think has been the most beneficial for you today?
Well, that's interesting. It's all how you look at it. I mean, Diageo was amazing. I mean, that was 14 years. The first 7 really were part-time, working as a presenter and a brand ambassador, mostly out of Chicago, but other parts of the U.S. But then when we went full-time, and they bring us over to Scotland, and then later on to once we got Bushmills, they bring us to to Ireland, and then to when they had Bullet, we go down to Kentucky, and you just soak up all this information. And a lot of us, a group of us usually would, if we went over to Scotland, one time we went over, and this is the other great thing too, is the benefits. I mean, you didn't just go over and, go into a boardroom. Freak, no. Okay. It was, one time we went on, was it once or twice? We went on the Classic Malt Cruise, where you're on a schooner, and you take off from Oban, and you stop off the Isle of Jura, have lunch, stay overnight, then sail down to Isla, where you dock at Corilla, and then, you go visit the Port Ellen Maltings and then Lagavulin, and then you go sail up the coast up to the Isle of Skye, and you dock at Talisker, and you're eating and you're having Kayleys, and you're seeing whales and sharks and all sorts of stuff, and it was great. I mean, that was a hoot. But afterwards, a group of us would then go, hey, yeah, but what about some of the other distilleries we have never gone to? So, like one time, I think after the Classic Malt Cruise, 4 of us rented a van, and we went to Clynelish, and then we went to Glen Ord and the Glen Ord Maltings. We went down to Dalwhinnie. We went over to Glenkinchy. Me and Spike McClure, who was the master of whiskey out of New York. I don't know if he's still called a master of whiskey, because I don't know how that works. Anyways, he and I were, we went down to Kilmarnock in search of Johnnie Walker's grave. And we found, cool. Yeah, and we found, eventually I found it on another trip, but we couldn't find it. But we did find the original Alexander Walker, Johnnie Walker's son's factory, which was all boarded up. It was kind of a shame. It was all boarded up. But there was a statue sitting right in front of a young Johnnie Walker leaning on the head of Zeus. We thought, fuck, this is like we found, Tutankhamun's tomb. We thought, oh my God. And then it turned out it was placed there in like the 90s. It wasn't like Johnnie Walker was alive or anything. But it was still pretty cool. Anyways, that's kind of stuff. Well, one, I mean, we could expense all that too. So that was kind of sweet. But now, on another part, the Independent Spirit Expo really helps me a lot now with Glencairn, because I've met so many great distillers. my job now is to go around the country and go to whiskey shows, but then go fan out and check out the distilleries, see what they're doing, what they're into, whether they want classes or if they want something different. Someone like a young Robert Licorice from the great Iron Root distillery there in Denison,
Yeah.
Denison,
Yep.
Texas. I say, boy. You know, and that's great. So, like Robert and Jonathan, we've gotten a little trashed in New Orleans and New York, a couple others, and that's great too. I mean, wonderful relationships, great people you get to meet. But you also find out so much about what's going on there now. It's amazing. I mean, it really is. So.
And I think one of the times you were out is when Jonathan was in New York and they won the World Whiskey Awards. Because I remember some pictures of all the winners being out that night. And I was like, no, I don't want to be many places, but I would like to be there tonight. You know?
Those are fun. I mean, the World Whiskey Awards are great because they have you have a lot of creme de la creme of the distilling world. It'd be kind of cool though. That's just really mostly the American Whiskey Awards.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really great if they brought all of them together because they have the UK stuff over in the UK.
Oh.
Kind of neat. I love when American and Canadian and even Japanese distillers, when they all come together and they actually kind of they start getting geeky with each other.
That's when weird things happen.
Yeah,
when people are being nerdy and having a few drinks, and you're like, "Oh, you want to do that? Why don't you come over here? This guy has already started doing that shit. you can skip the first 3 steps."
Yeah, I mean, I was just out at Journeyman Distillery last week.
Oh, okay.
And Bill Welter, he was a caddy at St. Andrews when he was a young man,
Mm-hmm.
and then he made friends with an Australian guy who went back to Australia and started his own distillery. And so now Bill keeps in contact with them. He went down there and trained a bit with them. And I mean, that's really cool because when I first started out, it was interesting. If you talked to a Scottish guy and asked him about bourbon, he could tell you just about this much. Yeah. I mean, a Scottish distiller. And then you talk to somebody out in Kentucky that could tell you about this much about Scotch. It was I found it fascinating that the two knew so little about each other. When you think, hey, I might want to check out what they're doing and see if there's anything I can take from them and bring it to. Mm-hmm. But I think the Scots are only in recent years have they started breaking out and trying to break out of their parameters, and
they had a tight tradition, of acceptability.
Very tight. Nick, I should do a little plug for Dr. Nick Morgan. You guys familiar with Dr. Nick?
I'm gonna say no, I'm not.
No.
But
great guy. He was our mentor. Who Mike Veach is?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He hired Mike Veach for United Distillers back in the early 90s when he hired Mike to put together the archives at Stitzelweller.
Okay, that would make sense. Totally.
But Dr. Nick is also a historian, and so he's putting out a book that should be out next week on Amazon, The History of Johnnie Walker, which I've already pre-ordered, baby. Because that's the guy. That's the guy who teaches people. That's the guy. So I'm getting that book. Anyways, what was there was a point. Yes, he gave a speech once at one of the World Whiskey Conferences about how Scotland had painted itself into a corner as far as innovation. I mean, you notice Scotch really can't do much other than play around with different types of wood. Mm-hmm. Yes, they can play around with different strains of barley, and I think some of them are starting to play around with different maybe different strains of, or not even the barley. I think they're like Berglotti's playing around with the Tier Noir, and you got a number of those. But I think they might be exploring yeast more, because right now yeast and grain, their big focus isn't so much flavor as it is yield. Whereas obviously in bourbon, they play around with the yeast for flavor.
Yeah,
that's a big thing for them. So, anyways,
I think that'll be pretty cool once they start doing that, because we've noticed that different yeasts have at least played an effect on like bourbon and stuff. Like, where a lot of times in the past, say 5 years ago, people might have been like, "Oh, it only does 2%." Well, that 2% seems to have a decent kick after it starts laying through everything and taking a couple years. So I think I'd say probably more like 5% or maybe even 10, depending upon the type of yeast you use, and they really can torque what's going on besides the grains.
Yeah. I mean, but see, that's the kind of stuff I'd like to see everyone interchange. And actually, where you might see a lot of that happening is in Ireland with all these new distilleries, because there weren't a lot of guys to pick from, a lot of with distilling backgrounds. They've recruited a lot of American distillers over there, and so I think you're going to see a lot of them. I think that Waterford, am I right? Yeah, Waterford Distillery. Blackwater Distillery. Peter Mulryan, he recruited an American distiller for the very purpose that he wants him to shake things up a bit. He wants him to bring some of the American influence over and see how it can affect traditional Irish whiskey. They're making single pot still, but he wants to see what an American influence might do on it.
I think I saw it was Blackwater. They were doing like an all Irish rye.
Yeah.
Just some things I don't normally see with an Irish whiskey. And I love seeing that kind of innovation and mixing it up like that. So.
Yeah. Well, he's Peter Mulryan. He's an interesting guy. He's written a couple good books about Irish whiskey. He did a great one about the history of Bushmills. That if you're interested, you should get that. I think it's called 400 years of something of Bushmills. That's what I would title it.
And just like that, what you're saying, like using innovation from other places, or even if you're an American, like trying to lean on someone that has 400 years of experience that you don't have. I mean, just there's got to be, just in my mind, knowledge that you can't have and can't get just from that process of time frame. So there's got to be some niche that you could steal from them or borrow, however you want to do it without getting in trouble.
Or use the word blend. You can blend it. And I think, in a way, especially with Irish and American, because there's such a relationship between, Ireland and America. Because as I was told once over there, I said, "You guys don't seem to hate Americans." When I was over there, going over around Europe as an American, you had to kind of pick and choose what nations you went into, because some of them were not particularly friendly.
Martin was tying a Canadian flag to his backpack, just like many of us do.
No, I wore the red, white, and blue bravely. I said, "You want to take me on? Go ahead, but one at a time."
Yeah,
I'm not a young man. But the Irish have. One Irish fellow told me, he said, there's a great relationship between America and the U.S. because there are so many of them have relatives in the U.S. It's like, you can't really hate the U.S. because that's like hating your relatives. So, so that's kind of cool. But also, when you think of the influence that the Irish have had on whiskey over here, it was a number one seller in the 19th century. It outsold bourbon in the U.S. It outsold Scotch in Scotland. That's how big Irish whiskey was. So it's kind of sad that we had this big lull since Prohibition, really, with Irish whiskey. The Irish whiskey industry was almost dead. At one point, we only had 2 distilleries over there. 2.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're on the verge of having 30. We'll see how things work out with all this.
Yeah, that's a nice expansion. But I remember.
Damn you, Prohibition.
Yeah,
just
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did a number on on a lot of stuff. Especially since I think a lot of people who went to bourbon in that time frame, and then they started getting a lot of the buttery notes from Irishes that they weren't getting. I just think it was a rich texture that some people are going back to that sometimes people are missing. It's just that light buttery note.
Well, and also I think Irish whiskey is so. I've always called it the pussycat of whiskey. I mean, it's a gentle little dram. Very few Irish whiskeys. Even, I usually go towards Blackbush or Bushmill 16-year-olds. They're a bit bigger, a little hardier. Or Redbreast, especially Redbreast 15. But, the rest of them, I mean, they're really soft. And I think it's one of the reasons why Jameson does so well is that kids in college towns can drink shots of it and think that they're having real strong whiskey. And when actually, in a way, they're kind of drinking the Miller Lite of Irish whiskey. No offense to Jameson people, but it's a very light, and especially if you have add a little drop of water to a little sample of Jameson, it kind of disappears.
Sex in the canoe.
Yeah.
And
And then get that little bit more of a metallic note coming through then too. So I wasn't a huge fan of Jameson in my college days, but when I got older and had some of their the Cooper's Crow or the Distillers Select line, I was like, it went from like you said, like this is what I thought people at college were getting, to like, holy shit, someone there really knows what they're doing. Just because like a dramatic step up, I was like, well, I thought it was all this, where I was like, whatever, and I'm like, no, there's some people that really know what they're doing. But yeah, I guess if you're gonna have a bottle at every bar in the country, you know, a little something that's a little more easier to produce on a mass quantity.
Well, that's just, I mean, the regular Jameson is, it is what it is, but it's a shame in a way if that's all you ever knew about Jameson, because their other expressions are fantastic. And once they came out with the first the stout Caskmate,
yeah, love that.
That's also up there with the pantheon of my favorite Irish whiskeys.
And their Method in Madness line is
get a lot of traction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I go over to Ireland, I usually make a stopover. Every year since I've worked for Glencairn, except with the exception of this one, I'll go over to Scotland. And when I'm over in Scotland, I'm way too close to Ireland not to go over for a couple of days. So I'll go over and I'll meet the boys from the Irish Whiskey Appreciation Society, and they usually have a tasting going on, or we get together in a pub. And those guys, I mean, it's amazing. It's night and day from, even though they existed in my day in Ireland, it was a smaller group. Nowadays, they are feverish and they know their stuff, and they're it's great to pick up info from them, because someone like Fiona O'Connor, who wrote A Parting Glass, a glass apart, he last time I was over last year, I ran into him in a pub, and he has a bunch of old mash bills that he was out in the Netherlands, I don't know, searching through records and finding these old mash bills. I go, dude, don't you have a girlfriend or something? I mean, but he does. He's able to balance both, so that's good.
Is there a favorite pub or bar that you like, that you, every time you're back in Ireland, I've got to make sure I hit this place?
Well, it depends on different parts of Ireland, because that was another bonus of going working over there. I went all over Ireland, so you get to go to these places. But if you're in Dublin, you can go to the Bleeding Horse. It's a good pub, but the Bleeding Horse, one, has a weird name. Two, it's haunted by the horse. So, how many bars can you say? How many pubs you know are haunted by a horse? But the Palace in Temple Bar is a great. In fact, there's a whiskey bar. If you go outside, there's a door right there, some stairs leading up. You go upstairs. Great whiskey bar, great Irish whiskey bar upstairs at the Palace. There was this one bar I went to. I really liked the Royal Oak, I think it was called. And it was by the prison. Shoot.
Where's
Famous
Terry
prison. Famous prison in Dublin. Anyways, I went there. Last time I went there, I think it turned into a gay bar. So nothing against, God bless them. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But it's not. It wasn't the pub. It wasn't the pub I fell in love with.
The atmosphere changed from when you walked in.
So. Too many rainbow flags. And it's like, rainbow flags? I'm in Ireland. I want to see shamrocks.
Do you guys still have the selection behind the bar you had?
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing, too. The selection had gone, what it was. But it wasn't like it was a great bar.
I think James May from Top Gear just bought the Royal Oak.
Really?
I was just watching it because he put a thing up because he's obviously saying this is obviously the best time to buy a bar because nobody's going to they're all closing like crazy. But they just posted a thing about there. He was trying to have a classic pub, but he's like half owner on it.
It's I loved it, and I placed some Bushmill stuff in there when I was working over there, which I was kind of proud of. But when I went, it was all gone. And actually, also too, what am I thinking? I still love going, though it gets very crowded. But going to the oldest pub in Ireland is help me. Oh, it's right there. It's right there. 3 blocks from Guinness. It's the crap.
The Brazen Head.
Brazen Head. Thank you very much.
Great. Second too. I could see the damn picture in my head. It was irritating me.
Part of it has been around since 1198, and also, if you guys go, here's a little vacationing tip for you. You go, say you go on a Monday, go early, and if you go across the Liffey, same street as the Brazen Head, but go north. St. Michan's Church. They'll give you tours of the crypt. And a couple of years back, they allowed you to go into one of the crypts and rub the hand of the 900-year-old crusader. There's mummified body. I mean, naturally mummified. Their coffins had disintegrated, and the bodies were just laying there. And so they bring you in and let you rub their hand. And so I went in. It's supposed to be for good luck. I rubbed his hand. And then afterwards, I went up and I figured, it's lunchtime. I better go have lunch. I go up to the Brazen Head. I ordered their chicken sandwich, which was delicious. But I'm eating it. And after I'm eating it a couple times, I realized, I didn't wash my hand. I'm 900-year-old mummy. I'm a sandwich.
How many people have touched him?
Yeah, and that wasn't his hand.
Yeah. It wouldn't have made a difference. 900-year-old old. I just hope he didn't die of the plague or anything. But it's great. There's a bunch of great. If you're ever in Galway, if I'm pronouncing it right, Tianek. No, Tianek's a Scottish distillery. Tinacton. I think that's how you pronounce it. Great, cramped little pub, but they have live. They have live sessions where 2 or 3 musicians will just come together, and then like an old guy will stand up and start singing, and everyone shuts up. It's really great. It's old Ireland, which is kind of disappearing now. It's just great, beautiful, and great fish and chips.
I have a hard time getting some of those. The wife does not like fish at all, so like it's hard for me to like sneak in that fish and chip spot to get it. I did cheat when we were in Peru. I think the whole city, we were on the coast, only had seafood, so that was just the way it was that day.
Well, she can have chicken. That's the only other thing I really recommend in Ireland. If they ain't gonna eat fish, eat chicken. They make really great chicken for some strange reason.
Okay,
and of course, potatoes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so speaking of all the traveling here, is Glencairn going to have a travel version of the glass?
A travel version? How can you travel? What are you going to do? Make it out of plastic? We're a crystal company.
Well, or something like I've got for camping. I've got a noser that I take because I can drop it and nothing happens to it, and I don't have to worry about it.
Well, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. I think I have it in the other room. We have a leather traveling case.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it says Glencairn. It's has a leather on the outside. You open it up and you can have 2 glasses in it, and it's solid. Okay. So that will protect your glasses. I noticed too, you guys. I mean, say you're walking around the woods, and you're afraid you might trip and spill your whiskey. That would be horrible. So you want to take precautions. And just like you were going mountain climbing and you'd have those little metal clips or something to make sure that you don't fall off the side of a mountain like Tom Cruise. You can have a lanyard.
Mm-hmm.
You just wear that around your neck. And then if you are hanging off the cliff and no one ever saves you, that's what they'll find hanging from your skeleton when you're dangling off that branch that's still sticking out of the cliff.
Yeah, I remember seeing that a couple of years ago when you were going to Distill America, where you had like the tube, and I was like, "What the fuck's in the tube?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, I get that." And I'm like, and then I saw the little lanyard. I'm like, "Oh, that's just smart," and I feel that's $1 million idea, and I lost out on. like everyone needs one of those. Damn it.
And actually, we didn't even think of this. Some guy in Germany did. So we actually get these from him, I believe. But yeah, it is smart though. At the same time, you do look like a big nerd.
Yeah, that's well.
Here,
I've conceded my whiskey nerdness when I go to some events just to begin with.
Here,
I mean, if you're at the festival, there a lot of people have them. So
Paul Helfko a number of years ago at Whiskey Fest created a whiskey bingo sheet, and it was all the things you're supposed to go around and everything. You check off each item as you see them at the whiskey event. So I don't know if you can see this here, but the center square is me, and then right next to it is man. Let's see, where is it? Man with lanyard, with a Glencairn lanyard. So I'm actually good for 2 points.
as long as you don't also count for moob sweat, then that would be awesome.
I always wear layers, so you could, if you wanted, you could check me, but you can't prove it.
Get the trifecta.
Overly serious nosing, overly sweaty guy and moob sweat. You'd think that'd be the same thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's another twofer,
Yeah, right.
I guess you got to spot him early to get the moob sweat before he gets overly sweaty.
Now, how did you? Go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, I was going to say, so a technical question for you. So a lot of people will get like grandma or grandpa's decanter and glass set. Do you like what like if someone's coming to you and they say, "Oh, I've got that's a cool glass, but I've got my grandpa's old set." What would you tell them about using that old set versus getting their own set?
Well, I mean, it depends on how old, and is it crystal or is it just regular glass?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's really old crystal, as cool as that is, you got to be careful because old crystal can leach out lead. However, with that said, I mean, I don't know how you would measure it, but there has been if it's the amount of lead that you get out of, drinking out of a decanter, kind of depends how long's that whiskey been in there. You wouldn't store whiskey in a decanter anyways. I wouldn't, because the seal isn't very good. I tried it once in Ireland. I think one of the guys at Glencairn had come over. Scotty Davidson came over and gave me a decanter. I thought, oh, cool. I'll got to have this on my. I'll pour Bushmills in there, and I'll just leave it on my coffee table and look cool. Then I thought, oh my God, I just watched this. It slowly evaporated away. It's not a tight seal. It's great for presenting, but so the amount of time it's actually in there probably wouldn't hurt it. However, you are safer nowadays with getting a brand new one, cleaner. The other nice thing too with the Decanter Set is, putting your own little mark on it, literally. Create a. Scott actually found the Duffy crest, which is very rare and very regal, online, and he had it imprinted on these glasses with matching tumblers, crystal tumblers. It's pretty cool. That's a great way to serve. So I don't know. I like that.
That's pretty tight. How did you end up coming to work for Glencairn? Because it sounds like you being the only one in the U.S. sounds like a pretty tall order to handle that area.
That's why they came to me. That only makes sense.
There's only one guy.
That's right. They're all sitting around the boardroom saying, "What can we do?
We could just get Martin Duffy."
There's one man. That one man is Martin Duffy. Is he out of work?
Get the Duffer?
Yes, he's out of work. I think we can get him cheap. So I knew it was interesting. My rise in the whiskey industry came at a little earlier, but not much. I started working for Johnnie Walker in 90. It was UDV back then, by the way, so United Distillers, in 96. This glass came around in 2000. That's when they developed it. I believe 2001 was the first year that it was used at Whiskey Fest. And so I was working Whiskey Fest, and I met the Davidsons. I think it was Scott and his soon-to-be wife, Eileen, and we and Ray Davidson. And we got along famously, and we became friends ever since. And anytime I went over to Scotland, I go visit them and end up meeting the other brothers, Andy and Paul, and we just became good buds. And then let's see, I left Diageo end of 2010. Did the Indie Spirit Expo, started working for Benedictine, end of 2011 to 2013. Was out of work steadily for about a year or so. I was always doing something. But I didn't, as far as working for a company, let's see, it was 6 years ago this past August. So it was 2014. So it was about a year. And Andy Davidson came over, asked me out to lunch. Said, sure, hey. And then he said, how would you like to represent Glencairn in North America? Said, well, if I have to, do I get paid? And they said yes, and the rest is all history. Now I'm on the verge of being South American.
Really?
Yes, so the Western Hemisphere. Only I got to learn Spanish so quick.
Yeah, I've been down there. I've been down to South America, and I didn't know my Spanish well enough, and we got picked up and brought back to our hotel one night, and I was talking with the taxi driver, and I thought he wanted a big tip. I thought he wanted like a $20 tip, and it was late. We were in the wrong city. He brought us to the right city. I was just happy to be back at my own fucking hotel. Really, that's lost in a different country. I'm just happy to be home. Here, you take the $20 or $30 tip, and I ended up watching a show like half an hour later. And my wife hears me. I'm like, "Oh, son of a bitch!" She's like, "What happened?" I'm like, I just realized he said his kids were 21 and 22 years old. Not that he wanted a $20 tip. I was like,
yeah, you probably just paid for his rent for the month.
I looked at you. You know what? I'm just happy we're here. That's fine by me. I've overpaid by far worse things to happen to me.
My advice is always just tell them "mi gato es su gato," and then walk away quickly. See how that goes.
We did have a question from the chat, and you can defer. But James is wondering if you had an opinion about the Norland whiskey glass, since you are a competitor. What do you think about? Or you can say pass. That happens on our show too.
I mean, the thing with, obviously, in fact, I know some of the guys. I don't know the folks behind Norland, but I've never met them. But it's always great. I mean, to try these different glasses and see them. Speaking from a consumer point of view, Northern glass is really expensive, and I don't know if someone gets something out of it. Great, that's fantastic. However, I always think the rounded lip, is a little weird. I don't dig that, and. What's actually interesting is that Paul Davidson in his office has a plastic prototype of that glass that was given to him years ago by Diageo because they were looking to make that glass. So, it's great that, they seem to have pretty good success with it, but it is fuck you expensive.
Yeah, I was going to put that up. I was, but yeah, it is. That is true.
And that's just it. My idea with whiskey, and it's even the whiskeys I mentioned that I enjoy are not expensive. I always loved the fact that whiskey, much like theater once was. I used to be in theater back in my youth.
Well, there's a question about that Robert brought up. We'll have to spin back to, but keep going.
I have a lot of theater stories, a lot of brushes with greatness in my youth. People who went on to bigger and better things. Theater, just like theater, whiskey was for the common man. It was the common man's drink. Mm-hmm. It's funny if you read stories about the early 1800s in Scotland, whiskey was the Highlanders' drink, the commoner. And then slowly but surely, everyone it was what's his name, Walter Scott, glamorized the Highlanders, and now the royals wanted to drink this whiskey, and they found out it's not bad. Mm-hmm. So whiskey. And also in my dad's day, my grandfather's day, whiskey was the drink of the working man. And actually even in my day, in my earlier years, there wasn't, I couldn't tell you an expensive whiskey from my youth. And now you see all these whiskeys, $70,000 for something that you either one, never drink, or if you do drink it, a half hour later, you're pissing it into a toilet. That's an expensive piss. It's great. I always love trying something rare, but I think rarity doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. Well, it can be. Obviously, if they know it's rare, it's going to be expensive. But I mean, real quality. In fact, old doesn't necessarily mean good. Mm-hmm. It's just old. It's different. So the same thing with the glassware and almost anything else with whiskey. I never spend a lot of money, and I'm not a cheap guy. I don't believe in it. I used to buy real expensive bottles of whiskey and kind of put them away and thinking, that's my retirement fund. And then eBay got rid of selling alcohol. Now I'm thinking, Jesus, I have to auction it off. So as far as glassware goes, I mean, Glencairn was created by master blenders. It was created for nosing and tasting. Can some of these other glasses say the same? There's another glass whose name shall not pass my lips. That the owner, God bless him, he's a wonderful guy, but he'll put out some bogus reports and studies. Oh my God, isn't that your daughter's name at the bottom of that study? That's weird. So
it was an independent study.
Yeah, she independently studied it, and that's it. So I mean, it's just if it works for you, great. But you know what? At the same time, I love every once in a while taking out one of those heavy crystal tumblers that Scotty gave me and enjoying a whiskey in that, because it feels like old school, especially if I got to get myself a wingback chair, just a leather wingback chair and a fireplace somehow in the apartment, and just enjoy the old school and get a puppy at my feet, rent a puppy.
Yeah, there's a cigar just at hand as well too.
Yeah, I mean that stuff. I mean, there's something about it. It's something about that experience is what you're going for, right? And I think you enjoy it with a moderately priced glass. Now here's our cut crystal one. So this is only about $21.
That's not bad at all for one of those.
Yeah. I mean, that's wholesale. I mean, if you order it from us, the mixer. Now the mixer. Yeah. So you mentioned. So mixer glass was developed for Canadian whiskey because they wanted their own glass. But that got adopted by the guys down in Kentucky and Tennessee. They love it too because they can nose with it, but then they can drop a giant ice ball in it or add a mixer to it, as the Scots would say. A mixer.
Well, I found, for me, higher proof whiskeys, I tend to prefer nosing in a larger glass like this. It disperses the vapors a little more. I can get more out of it versus being so concentrated here. But the reason I showed this, I just had a question if Glencairn was looking at producing or developing glasses more specific to a specific type of spirit, like they did with this one, or
we were actually
just so well universal that it's.
We were approached by the Kentucky Bourbon Trail to create a bourbon glass.
Okay.
And we sent them we developed a prototype for it, but by that time they had already just went ahead and got that little glass they have now. I was like, really? That's what you went for? All right, whatever. I thought I had one of those I put a candle in. At a restaurant. Yes. But that's fine. Again, some people love them and some people love collecting glassware and the other one too. Do I have one here? No. It's the stem Capita.
That's another one. I like those as well too.
Yeah. I like that. Those are really great, and if you go into a nosing room in Scotland, that's what they'll use. They'll use the Glencairns out in the tasting room, but most of the master blenders will use stem Copitas. Richard Patterson helped us develop the Glencairn glass, but he uses our Copita glass, especially in all his videos, because he likes the stem. He doesn't want to touch the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember Dave Pickerel, of course?
Yeah.
So the late, great Dave Pickerel was in charge of the American Craft Spirits Association judging. This is about 5 years ago, down in Austin. And he was using the stem glass. I asked him, why are you using the stem, not our Glencairn? What's the matter with you? He goes, I don't like that glass. Why don't you like it? And he goes, I can't fit it between my fingers. You see, I like the stem. I go, it's not the glass's fault that he had little sausage fingers. Like little weenies on just kind of stuck like with a toothpick on the end of a hamburger. Good old Dave. Good old boy. I saw him once. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and how do you tell people how to use the Glencairn? What's the advice that you give them?
Well, Lou Bryson and I, along with Tom Johnson from the Aroma Academy, we're going around for about a year and a half to various whiskey events, offering up these free seminars about nosing and tasting whiskey. Obviously, Mr. Bryson, another call out. One of Lou's older books, Tasting Whiskey, and also his more recent tome, which if you go to, I have it earmarked here, page 261, you'll notice a nice little paragraph by yours truly. So, yeah. Look, don't mention me in your books unless you want me to go around telling everybody. Just buy the book to read about me. What I usually do is I go through a bit of the tasting experience that I usually even tell people before I worked for Glencairn, but there's a lot of nice little extra things about Glencairn glasses you need to know. Obviously, the clarity, even our non-leaded crystal, the standard glass, we use barium, so it is a crystal glass. It's just non-leaded or unleaded, non-leaded. So clarity, that's good when you're drinking, especially barrel strength, unadulterated whiskey. Just check out the color. Just kind of get a gauge of it. The legs, I actually love looking at the legs of a whiskey. Checking out the body, checking out the teardrops as they run down the side of the glass. The faster they go, lighter the body, slower they go, fuller the body. Just because it's an indication to your mouth what to expect when you finally do taste it. But now nosing. As you gents probably all know, up to 90% of everything you taste is in your sense of smell, right? Mm-hmm. So, there's a couple things you need to do. You got to find out which one of your nostrils is actually working, right?
That's true.
You alternate nostrils every 3 to 4 hours. One of them is taking a very long lunch break, and the other one is the one activated. So find out which one's going, and then just kind of box the compass. Go to every corner, north, south, east, west, not in that particular order, but see if you can't pick up different aromas from any different side of the glass. But a key thing is going from bottom to top, and you'll find that heavier, earthier qualities are at the bottom of the glass. Mm-hmm. They get lighter and fruitier and softer as you go up. Also, I always tell people, whiskey, it's not like wine tasting. Wine is snooty. So are wine tasters. They're snooty. So they're always burying their nose in the glass like this. As that whiskey's friendly to greet you. So simply, run it underneath your nose. If it is a high strength whiskey, I always recommend before you cut it with any water, put it underneath your nose and lightly inhale through the mouth and taste it on the back of your tongue without the alcohol. But then always cut it with water. Everybody I know, cuts, anybody who makes it usually cuts it with water. And master blenders very rarely, if ever, will nose a straight whiskey, right? So they're always cutting it with water to make it much more easy, especially if you're going to go through 30 or 40 whiskeys during the course of a day. I mean, they almost never taste it, right? So that nose can get exhausted. Oh, the other thing, too, which I'm really surprised. I know you guys might know this, but I'm always surprised when people say, oh, my God, I've nosed so many whiskeys, my nose is exhausted. Well, whiskeys, just inhale. Breathe your arm, vanilla beans, coffee beans, something else, and give your nose a break. Give it a little vacation, very short-lived vacation, and then go right back.
That's a nice little cheat. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's very important. You don't want to exhaust your your poor little sensors there. And then drink. Just drink it. God damn it.
Drink and enjoy.
And actually, too, here's another thing that I did with staff trainings. I would tell staff not to blurt out what they tasted or smelled. I'd ask them to write down color, then write down aroma, and put 1, 2, 3 underneath it. Now, palate, 1, 2, 3. Finish, 1, 2, 3. Now write 3 descriptors for each one of those. Don't tell anyone else, because too many times you're in a group and the Jedi mind trick comes into play. Yoda says, now you taste bananas, you do, that thing, and then everyone tastes bananas, where you might not have. And who knows? Maybe it goes, oh, that's what it was. It was bananas. But nah, I think it's better if it's just you and write down whatever you want. Don't think about making it some kind of big a floral language, I taste, it's like little teardrops from the Statue of Liberty and the foot of Zeus. I was at Cardew once. This is in the early years of the Masters of Whiskey, and Mr. Rick Edwards. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rick. Rick's been a bit of a journeyman. He was with us for a number of years, then went over to he was representing Glenlivet for a good number of years until recently, and now I believe he's with Stranahan's. But Rick, we're tasting out Lagavulin at Cardew, which is the brand home of Johnnie Walker, if you ever go and visit. And he had tastes Lagavulin, and he goes, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of my dad's garage. We're all looking around. What are you talking about? Yeah, that oily smell, that kind of garage car smell. And really, is it bad? What's did it go off? And he goes, no. That's what that oiliness, and that's what I really love about it. And I go, you know what? I love that descriptor because it's personal to him. But if he told me that'd make me drink Lagavulin because I love the fact that it brings up emotions. Yeah. Johnny Depp supposedly, back in the day, Johnny
There's
Depp,
a lot of supposedlys with Johnny Depp.
The story I had always heard is that he would order a glass of Lagavulin. He didn't drink whiskey, but he loved the smell of it. So you just use it as a little aromatherapy during meals between his 9 bottles of wine.
Yeah.
Getting smacked around by Amber.
I almost feel like there's a little Hunter S. Thompson story for Johnny Depp at some point too. That I just want to know what happened through a normal day every now and then.
Yeah. Soak your jockey shorts in whiskey and put them on.
But we are getting to about an hour and 15 minutes, and we don't want to keep you on too horribly long. But we don't know what your schedule is like, so we don't want to eat up your whole night. But I do have a couple other questions before we let you go. Let's see here. There was one in the chat I thought I missed, and that's never mind. I missed that one. Okay, we kind of heard that one. They wanted to know if we can get a hefty fat boy Glencairn glass.
A hefty fat boy?
I don't know.
What is there? It's not like
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, unless we're going with that big one,
the burger one. Oh, you mean?
Like I've seen a couple of them that are ginormous. Yeah. So James, I think that's your answer. That's the hefty fat boy one.
Oh, Benjamin, this is good for now. That is for your high strength whiskey.
There you go.
Hazmat level.
Awesome. Yeah, this is our trophy glass, actually. Look at that. Look at that size. Oh.
I thought that was just a party glass where you shared it around like a boot.
Yeah, you put a big rubber shark in it and a bunch of straws. This is our trophy glass. So this actually is about $150.
Now, Robert was mentioning
So
earlier
half
in the
the cost
show.
of a Norland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert was mentioning that you have some Second City stories, maybe. Were you in Second City?
Well, so I was the second group. This is back in the 80s. Shows how old I am.
Well, that just even makes it even more exciting for us who are around that to know who may have like crossed through those doors in that time frame.
It was. I mean, that was huge because it was a lot of. I don't want to say rubbed elbows. I bumped into a lot of famous Second City, Harold Ramis, and actually I worked at a bar down the street during 1990, and I ended up partying with Chris Farley, Brian Doyle Murray, and Joel Murray. So two of the Murray brothers and Chris Farley. Chris Farley lived across the street above a Mexican restaurant and my sister moved in the apartment that Joel Murray used to have. And she'd have parties, and we go, she'd ask me, do you want to see Chris Farley's apartment? I go, why do I want to see Chris Farley's apartment? Because you got to see Farley's apartment. And so we go, and the door would be off the hinges, just set in the doorway. And so she just pull it back, and you look in and go, oh my God. It was nothing but, it's where you would expect Bluto to live. So it was beer cans and pizza boxes and just fast food stuff. He would get drunk, and it was the second floor, right? He'd get drunk and pass out on the stairs leading up. Claudia, my sister, she managed this bar across the street. So he would call her up at 3 o'clock in the morning asking if she could bring beer home to the bar. And I guess he was in bad shape. He was in bad shape even then. But back in the 80s, I was the second group to go through the training center.
Okay.
And Bonnie Hunt, the actress Bonnie Hunt, was in the group ahead of us. I think there was some other folks who were potentially famous. Dave Pasquazi was there. But in my group, I performed with Steve Carell. And who's the other guy didn't go on to be a famous actor. But are any of you guys on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of. I'm sort of on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm like an old man on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, me too. I post liquor articles, and I get off there as fast as possible. Twitter is like going into a real bad neighborhood. You just kind of get in and out.
Yeah.
Cesspool society.
Yeah. But one of my cohorts, one of my fellow performers, was a fellow by the name of Dick Costello, who basically invented Twitter. And he was CEO up until a couple of years ago, and then he took a golden parachute, got out, and he's worth hundreds of millions. And we used to tease him. It's horrible. But then a bunch of other Andy Dick, the comedian, he went to Columbia with me, and Dino Stamatopoulos, for any of you out there who love Dino. Dino's done a lot. And so Dino and Andy were a comedy team for a while, and I'd go out to LA and visit them. And one time I was visiting Dino, and another friend of ours, another guy we went to school with, was Mike Stoyanoff. And for those of you who remember TV's Blossom, Mike Stoyanoff played the older brother Tony. And so we went to go wait for Mike in this corner restaurant attached to the studio. And I'm standing there with Dino, and these two guys are sitting at a table, and the one guy's calling Dino over, and Dino said, "Oh, we should go over there. That's That's the head writer. He's kind of my boss. Oh, Dino was writing for the Ben Stiller show at the
Oh,
time.
sweet.
And,
Sorry.
and he wanted to fix me up with Janine Garofalo. That wouldn't have worked out, though.
So did you go on a date?
No.
Okay.
She was coming to Chicago, and he wanted me to show her around. And then he had second thoughts, and he knew better. Yeah, she and I, our politics are not the same ilk. Anyways, we go over. We sit down with these two guys. No one really, LA sucks. Nobody is very. No one makes introductions or anything. I'm looking at these two guys. The head writer, I never saw it before, but the other guy looked really familiar. I go, who is that? And at one point, Dino said, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm a really big fan of your work. You're a very funny guy." And go, okay, he's funny. Okay. And I think we had shared an appetizer, and then the head writer said, "Hey, do you guys mind? We have some business to talk over." And, oh, okay. So we start walking away. I asked Dino, I go, "Dino, who is that guy? He looked really familiar." And he goes, "You don't know Jim Carrey?" This is, in fairness to me, I didn't really watch In Living Color, and it wasn't, and I definitely didn't go see any of the Ace Ventura movies. I was a little more highbrow. Talking through my butt kind of comedy. So, but that's kind of stuff. There was a lot of weird stuff like that. So actually, I kind of wish I did have a camera if I was that kind of guy. Only later in life did I realize, oh shit, I take photos of people, because I did meet a lot of famous stars back in the day. Richard Gere, and
that's just a neat twist that everyone has, and I know I have that now because I'm not a camera person, and then you start looking back, you're like, man, I wish I would have used this like all the time, or it's kind of like some people with the diary. There's like not every. Yeah. I wish I'd have been one of those people, because like Matthew McConaughey is doing like a thing kind of like that where he's going through his life, and it's called Green Light, and I'm like, because he kept like 36 journals throughout his life. I'm like, you know what? That's kind of cool to look back and be able to pull everything from.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I heard him talking about that. I did think that was. It was another actor who did it, and I bought it, the book, years ago. I always liked Charlton Heston just because I thought he was a big ham. But he was an entertaining ham. It was like, God damn it, that was my impersonation of him in college. Was he ended every sentence in an I eclipse, kind of. He would say something like, God damn it, Cornelius, So but it's funny nowadays. I'll go, oh my God, someone dies, a celebrity dies, and I go, oh my God, I have a picture of me with him. Oh my God, like Harry Dean Stanton. I met him in LA at a jazz bar. He was actually performing, and got a picture of me and him, and me and Tim Curry backstage at Spamalot because he loved Talisker. See, that's where the Diageo thing, I got in backstage, and Tim Curry was a huge fan of the Talisker. That was cool.
So did you get to bring bottles to anyone like that when you're going to meet them?
I have a picture of me presenting a bottle to George Bush Sr. of the, I think it was it the 200th anniversary bottle? No, what was it? It was a special cast strength blue label that a limited edition. Somebody else gave one to Bill Clinton somewhere else, and presented it to him. I presented it to. I brought my brother along because he played bagpipes. The two of us were dressed in kilts, and we're walking down this long hallway to the presidential suite of the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island.
Okay.
And, it's lined with Secret Service agents, which I thought they must have really checked us out, because both my brother and I both had skin dews and we had dirks in our stockings. I mean, we're gonna go see the president, the former president. You want to? with the knife. Yeah, I don't care. But I go in the room, and there's Steve Forbes from Forbes magazine, and there's Christopher Buckley, William F. Buckley's son. On the other side, oh my God! I start talking to the president. It's just me, the Diageo rep I was with, the local guy. He froze up. He couldn't come up with anything, and my brother just kind of stood there. He's not the brightest bulb on the shelf, anyways. But then we're me and it was George H.W. H.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, George H. Anyways, we're going on. He's asking me questions about whiskey, and I'm telling him. And then we had to do a reel on the QT though, because obviously they couldn't make a big thing out of it, since George Jr. Was a recovering alcoholic, and I'm getting the dad cast strength whiskey. But it was
You have
fun.
to make sure you lock this up, George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also being with Diageo, you got to go and see all sorts of folks. And actually, I ran into a lot of stars when I was in Ireland. Gabriel Byrne, Bono.
Oh, that's cool.
Bono looks like a 12-year-old. It's really shocking when you see him on the street. You go, oh my God, you're itsy bitsy. Who else? There was Jackson Brown. It was funny. They're just all over the place. It's a small country, so if they go there, I guess you're going to run into them. But it was really cool. There's a lot of that, and I really do kind of wish I just had maybe a little bow tie camera, so I could take a picture of some of these folks nonchalantly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, brand ambassador jobs, if you can get one, especially for a big brand, it's a great gig. But I think they're becoming harder and harder to find. Because
they want you to do everything. Well, before they still wanted you to do stuff virtually more so than in person, or pick up on that. And I think that in person connection really kind of makes that mark for people compared. I mean, I know this is great for everyone watching, and yes, we're connecting with you. Don't forget that. But it's not the same as if we were all hanging out in a room. It's just not the exact same. I mean, your memory clicks so much better, or at least mine does, if things actually happen and I was there.
Yeah.
Recall tangible things that happened.
Yeah, no, it's so much. I mean, it was great back then, especially originally when we were first starting out. It was strictly events, so we'd be asked to go to some event, and sometimes there were, big guys. So I got a picture of me and old Rudy Giuliani. He was at the Big Smoke, and I think here in Chicago. That's right, back when they had a Big Smoke. But I mean, you're always rubbing elbows with folks, but also too, you're right. In the early days, especially when nobody knew what a brand ambassador was, and especially when they slapped the title Master of Whiskey on me, I'm a Irish kid from the southwest side of Chicago, and here they're slapping a kilt and a title like Master of Scotch was my original title. And I go, Jesus fucking Christ! I'm following the guys who actually came over from Scotland, who actually made the whiskey. And now you're calling me a Master of Scotch, and you're putting a kilt on me, and I go, oh my God, I'm not even sure if I'm wearing it backwards or not. So it was really, really, really funky. But it's also great too, is seeing some of the people now. I don't know if you guys, who's my friend? Am I blanking on his last name? Must be just late. Dan with Glencairn.
Excuse me, Dr. Dan.
Dan used to be my sales rep in Omaha.
Oh my.
He was. But we had the best time ever. And Dan is his brain is like a big lint ball. I mean, he just picks up knowledge like lint, like a big lint brush. I lint brush. Just
It's combustible and gets everywhere.
Damn. But you know, and it's great seeing so many of these guys then go off, and a lot of bartenders I know became brand ambassadors for various brands. I like to, however, see everybody go off and start their own brand. That's what I like about all the small brands I dealt with. Seeing these distilleries, seeing these little folks starting businesses, it's so hard, it's so tough, and I really, 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 really feel for them right now. And I really hope to God that they're able to make ends meet until all this shit is over.
Yeah, we're kind of in that same boat with a lot of them, hoping some people can just squeak by. Well, 2 questions, and we'll let you go. One goes to this, but one happened a long time ago, and I missed it. We just went past it. Nathan was wondering, how much of your time do you spend trying to educate non-whiskey people that the glass you drink whiskey from actually does matter?
I don't know if I work much with non-whiskey drinkers, because that's like people who, hey, I'm trying to sell car air fresheners to somebody who doesn't drive. Unless you're
even just whiskey drinkers, though.
Unless you're talking about if they're drinking other spirits.
Okay,
and I do some of that. I mean, we actually sell the glass quite a bit to rum distilleries and rum brands. To the mixer glass sells very well with gin producers, because it in a way it's a better glass for if you're going to drink gin and tonic in kind of the Spanish goblet style.
Okay,
because those goblets, are way too big. If you're seriously going to try to make just one drink, not put multiple shots of gin in to fill it up. It's a lot smarter to just fill that glass up with ice and whatever botanicals, and then put 1 shot of gin and fill the rest up with a nice tonic. So we do that. Who else? Tequila. Our glass sells very well with tequila makers. They also like our stem copita, which might get confusing if it's down there because they have the little clay copita for mezcal. But yeah, I don't. As far as my time, there's so much whiskey out there. There's a mountain of whiskey makers that I need to still contact. That's the tough part. Yeah. So
I could only imagine how it is to try to go through all that. Now you're mentioning great kind of smaller distilleries. What are some small distilleries that you have found kind of impressive or have kind of surprised you in the last year or two? It could be craft, it could be whatever, but just what are a couple that have kind of surprised you?
I love what Colin Keegan does at Santa Fe Spirits.
Yeah.
That's really, I really dig that mesquite whiskey he makes.
We're supposed to be getting a sample of the PX cask that they just did recently. So in a couple weeks, we'll be finding out about that.
Yeah. So, Colin, at one point back in August, he was unsure whether he'd make it through all this, but he's found a new breath. So he's been doing okay. Who else? I love Minor Case from Limestone Branch.
Yes. Yep.
I think they do great stuff. I haven't had a lot of it, but anything Pat Heist does at Wilderness Trail.
Yeah, he seems to be another one recently that is whatever they seem to be putting out, people tend to enjoy. So
yeah.
Pat Heist is amazing. He gave one of the most entertaining seminars on fermentation at 9 a.m. in the morning I could ever imagine. Really, really good. Obviously, there are a bunch of other guys when Westland first came out, blew me away. I think they're kind of established and people have tried them and they either love them or they don't. I'm trying to think. I love what, even though they don't distill it themselves, but you guys know the J. Henry folks.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they are very into it. They're very hands-on. So,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Some
Here
of
in
those-
Illinois, Blum Brothers. I love Blum Brothers. A few.
Yeah.
It's always been a favorite. Journeyman. I was just, like I said, I was just out there, and Bill's always doing something different. It's always good.
And they always have nice stories with what they're doing when they name their bottles. I like the stories behind everything with them. I'm like, they're another one that adds that extra layer for you to like remember what happened when you're having it.
Well, that's the other crazy. There's two things, especially on our show, and a lot of times when I'm interviewing, sometimes Glencairn asks me to interview various distillers. The thing I always love is the backstory. A lot of times of the distiller himself or herself. What did they do before? Like the Blum Brothers. I mean, Mike used to work for that freaking NSA.
Yeah. I felt like he was looking me up before we had him on, like making sure there was clearance and okay to come on the show. I'm like, he can probably like figure out what I've all done in my entire life in 10 minutes. I'm concerned.
I was drinking with Mike up in Galena one night, and he wouldn't tell me too much, but he did confess he knew where some CIA black sites were. Boom. That's the kind of guy you want to go do a road trip with. Who else? And then obviously his brother Matt sold nuke parts. So together, the two of them should be on some kind of watch list. Who else? I'm trying. Boy, it's funny. You go through it and you're.
No, hey, you've rattled off a few. So that's pretty damn good.
Try to just go by state, because also some of them it's not so much their whiskey, but some other spirits. Like I love gin, and if they're making a really good gin, I'll love that.
We're starting to fan out. So what's your favorite? What's one of your favorite gins? And are you more of a London Dry, or are you more of like a New World gin?
I cut my teeth on Tanqueray, and to me that is the benchmark. I know some folks. I'm surprised it's still going on, and it's one of the first things that'll turn me off when I go to a distiller and they go, "Yeah, we don't want to get away from all that kind of Tanqueray." I go, "Dude, it's the best freaking gin in the world. Why would you get away from it?" And we didn't like all that juniper, and I go, "But juniper gin, you don't see the connection there." So what's a good one? Because there are some beauties. I need to look at my bar. I
want to look at your bar. Just by that statement means that I want to look at your bar.
Dude, it's a little impressive. If I say, impressive and depressing at the same time. I'm looking at your guys, especially Mike, your background there. And Benjamin, you got what's all that floor space? That should be little bottles of whiskey.
That's for dancing.
I bought a bunch of cabinets to put all my whiskey in, and then some of my other kind of rare spirits. But I've run out of cabinets and places to put cabinets. So now it's just growing like mold around the cabinets on the floor. And my brother gave me an old collapsible bar long ago. Yeah, that should be in a basement somewhere, but I put it in my little front room and filled that up with whiskey. And now there's whiskey on top of it. And then there's whiskey in my guest room in this cabinet, and that's some of the older rare stuff I got. I put it in there, and there's just too much. You let a match in this place, it's ridiculous. Anyways, trying to think of what's a great gin. You know what I like? I like some of these guys who make gin, G-Vine out of France.
Okay.
So that's made by a fellow by the name, if I bastardize his last name, it's Jean-Sebastien Roquet. Really nice guy. He was making a grape-based vodka when Diageo was coming up with a great base vodka, so they teamed up and made Ciroc. So he makes Ciroc for Diageo, but he also has cognac, and he makes some of the best vermouths. L'Aquitaine. You can find them; they are delicious. And then he makes G-Vine gin. And he makes one which is kind of the American style light one. Then he makes G-Vine London Dry, and that's good. That's good. I gotta be careful though with gin and tonics, man. I love gin and tonics. I could get.
Well, they're like some of the other things that disappear quick. You know what I mean?
It's a good thing I don't have a built-in swimming pool.
They land and that was like on drink number 3.
It's so good.
James, listening to your stories with Harris wants to know if he can just stay in the guest room.
I know. I gotta be careful. I don't let big drinkers in the guest room. There's a little lock on there. And
that's what I was gonna say. Like all of a sudden, you hear this click. Hey, what are you doing in there?
So, Mike, going back, the other perk of working for a big company like Diageo is back in the day when they first. It was about 2002, 2003 when they first started coming up with the whole idea of, actually, I shouldn't say that because they had the rare malts. You guys remember that line that United Distillers used to put out? And I still have about 6 of those. But they started with the rare editions. And this is back when they it was rare to have these older expressions. So I still have 2 Talisker 20-year-olds at 2 different ABVs, completely aged in sherry cask. I have Oban 32, Dalwhinnie 29, Craggamore 29. I got Talisker 30, Talisker 25, Lagavulin 21, Lagavulin 25. So I basically got, just kind of, they come, maybe a bunch of them come to Illinois. I mean, not that many. And I'd say, I need one for my samples.
Well,
so it's still unopened. So that's part of my retirement.
That's the retirement fund.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We'll see how those go.
Oh, well, we've kept you an extra half an hour from when I said I was going to let you go.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I was watching the Bears, and the Bears looked like they were about to lose to the Rams or losing.
I'm a Bears fan in Green Bay, and I'm just an honest. I'm an honest one where it's been about 20 years before I've been able to say anything decent.
Believe me, I'm a Sox fan on the north side of Chicago. Believe me, it's lonely. It's very lonely up here.
That is. I totally believe that. Sorry.
Luckily, Cubs fans, you can blow those guys over with a feather. Cubs fans, get out of my way.
You could throw a tall boy beer can and hit a Cubs fan anywhere. Not that you would do that.
If I had a dead cat, I'd just start swinging it.
Just saying, if you had one.
Knocking over Cubs fans. They work my way through the crowd.
But I think we're getting close to the end. We'll let you go get back to. Oh wait, we didn't talk about one thing, and I want to bring it up here before we get going. It's just the 20th anniversary. You guys have a whole new set of tasting cups.
That's right, the blind tasting set.
Those are sexy.
Now, yeah, they are. And which color did you find? Because I know you guys had black and blue before. Because I was tried to get the black, and I was like a day late on ordering it. But out of those glasses, which one do you like the most to use for a blind tasting? The blue?
No.
No.
Actually, I can't really honestly say because I haven't used them for a blind tasting myself yet.
Okay.
I just got a kit maybe about 2 weeks ago. They sent me over one. So I am kind of really interested in trying it out. But then again, it can't be a blind tasting if I'm also pouring it. So
Yeah.
I need this whole lockdown stuff. I need somebody to come over, pour me my own whiskey in the 6 different glasses, and give it a try.
Just have your neighbor come over and do it, and then we'll leave.
Yeah.
Well, what were the answers? Damn it! He didn't leave me
That's
the
right.
answers.
See, it's a lot more complicated than it sounds. But I mean, I think they look. It looks beautiful, especially in that black box. It's so cool looking. And I was trying to get the boys. I said, "Can you just take that gold, green, and red, make a 3-box set for Christmas? Just make it available for Christmas." We had one suggestion. A guy wanted us to do an orange one, an orange and black for Halloween. But then I'm thinking, who the fuck is drinking 2 whiskeys on Halloween?
Yeah, and when are you going to use orange again? As it used before?
Next Halloween,
yeah,
a pumpkin festival. I don't know.
That's too much work to start drawing shit on the faces of faces on the glasses.
Yeah. So I mean, that is pretty cool, and that is marking. So, now they have other stuff coming out.
Oh,
that I don't know about. That they won't even tell me because they know I'm a bit of a blabbermouth. But so this year, 2020 is the 20th anniversary of the Glencairn glass, birth of the glass. However, next year is the 40th anniversary of Glencairn. So they will be bringing out some extra stuff. I'm hoping. I don't think this is a big secret, but I wanted them to come out with some Glencairn apparel. So we'll probably have a Glencairn hoodie, the big Glencairn glass, Glencairn baseball cap. Scots don't really know about baseball, so I had to explain it to them. And then I don't know if you guys have seen the cufflinks and all the little jewelry.
Yeah.
No, but that's cool.
We have Glencairn, so it's little Glencairn glass cufflinks, earrings for the ladies, charm bracelets for the ladies, or for the guys if you go that way. And then I have tie tacks, keychains.
I'm loving how you're also like a kind of PR/sales advertising rep at the same time.
That's kind of my gig.
Well, I mean, you're thinking of all the extra side things. Like I remember when I was in PR and stuff, I was like, well, you could do this, but we could also make money here, and here.
Well, actually, I mean, the thing with that is that I was telling the guys, look, well, one, even though the glass has been around for 20 years, there's a lot of people who think it's been around a lot longer. And there's so many knockoffs, especially coming over from China. If it does not say Glencairn at the bottom of the glass, it's not a Glencairn glass. It's from China, and it's made from children.
Literally made from children.
Melted down children. So do not drink. Sometimes you'll look at the glass and you'll see little eyes
looking back at you.
So, so there's that. There's a lot of people don't associate the name Glencairn. On LinkedIn, people are constantly contacting me, thinking I work for a Scotch company. I'd love to have some of that Glencairn single malt. That'd be wonderful. And
really? You just write someone on. I can't believe you do that at LinkedIn and be like, "Oh, it looks like you work for a Scotch company. Can I have some?"
Well, a lot from India. Well, they're not asking for a free bottle necessarily.
Oh, okay.
No, they want me to import it to them. They go, I'm very interested in your single malt whiskey. Send it to us, please. But then there's I don't know if about a year and a half ago, some guy, I think they're in Michigan, wanted to make a Glencairn wooden Glencairn glass. And I go, no, that shape, all of that is trademarked permanently. We have the 3D trademark on that, so you can't make that. And these guys said, "Oh, we don't care. We're going to do it anyways." Okay, do it anyways and get sued. Crystal hammer. Crystal hammer comes down on your head like Maxwell. And so, anyways, it turned out that they used the wrong wood and it leaked.
Oh. That's got to feel a little bit even better when it works out like that.
So, does the hoodie have a pocket to hold a Glencairn?
That would be there's a great idea.
Or even a Glencairn tie with a pocket on it, so it does double duty as your.
You know what? Oh, you kangaroo all of a sudden. I kind of like that. Wouldn't be a bad thing, maybe just it's like.
Excuse me, I have a business meeting.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you just have maybe a suit coat where you just bring the hello.
Yes.
A full glass of Glencairn right here. So by us doing this, we're also trying to get. We're trying to cut off other people at the pass at creating it because there's a lot of stuff. We're constantly looking at people who use the shape of the glass, either in the logos, in their, in some kind of clothing design. There's a lot.
I'm glad we changed ours.
Well, the thing is, we don't, especially for groups and stuff. If you're going to have a logo, we don't really mind as long as you sign up with us. You ask for approval. That way too, we can track it. We can say, we have 30 whiskey groups around the country, using it. That's wonderful. But what we don't like is when someone uses the glass for like whiskey, bourbon and beyond was using our glass as their logo. It's an outdoor event.
Oh, I thought they would have at least cleared with that because that was like on the poster, like big, like 2 years ago. That was like the centerpiece.
I contacted them.
Jesus.
Said, excuse me, and then they're nice about it at first. They say, sorry, you guys gonna sue us? No. What we like is for you to actually use our glass. If you're gonna promote your event with the glass, shouldn't you have our glass? And so they did order some, but eventually they started taking off a lot of their stuff, and I think they just didn't want to bother with it. And I went last year, and bourbon. Yeah, bourbon was a little tiny part of that festival. I mean, it was just really a big music festival that had a couple of bourbon tents. It wasn't that bourbony. Anyways, that's why we do that stuff, and it'd be great to have more and more of that stuff. What is that, hoodie with lanyard mounts?
Hold on, I gotta get back.
Like something that straight. Well, I was thinking that pocket. Like I like the pocket, and so if you have your glass on your lanyard, you can park the glass so it's not always dangling.
Yeah.
In the little pocket inside. Like it, putting in development, not giving you credit for it.
That's all right.
It's just like college. I remember this.
Hey, well, here's another little piece of Duffy lore. If you ever see this shirt, and I don't think I believe they discontinued selling it at the distillery a couple years back. But so when I was a master of whiskey, if you were coming up with something of your own, you were supposed to pass it through Diageo's marketing company, marketing department. But I figured they wouldn't accept this. I came up with a T-shirt for Dickel. George Dickel had said, "If all you know is Jack, you don't know Dickel." Right? And so I would make like 100 of them just locally and hand them out, especially to girl bartenders. I get little baby doll ones that said that and give that out. They're very popular. And then another master of whiskey over in Seattle, he said, "Hey, can I make those?" I go, "Yeah, just don't let New York know. Let New York know." But as it turned out, New York loved it. New York said, "Oh my God, this is great." And it became the #1 selling item at the George Dickel distillery. I got nothing.
No.
Because it became their intellectual property.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, there's a picture. If you look online, you can see a picture of Robert Patterson.
Yeah.
You Batman. He was walking into a nightclub, and he's wearing my shirt.
That's when you feel like, can't I get a Can I at least get a fancy bottle or a little kickback?
Yeah.
A little something? A little something.
The Johnnie Walker 200th anniversary, where they only made like 200 bottles of it. How about one of those for me? It's only $30,000.
I'm not asking for any of the other. It's not like I'm asking for the other Dalmores or anything weird. I'm just a 30,000er. It's not that bad.
Yeah, right. And you guys aren't drinking it. Nobody drinks those. Nobody ever opens those. They just hold on to them. I might actually drink it on a loopy night.
Get myself into trouble the next day. Like, there went retirement. No, but Morton, thank you for staying on with us for 2 hours. I mean, I appreciate it quite a bit. We know we ate up part of your night, so thank you so much for stopping on.
Fun.
Everyone in the chat, thanks for stopping in and hanging out with us tonight. We appreciate you guys doing that too. Maybe someday if you got there's 10,000 other questions we could ask. You have a big history, and you do festivals and all sorts of other stuff that have.
We can talk about festivals. There's so many of them. Yeah. Well, there were.
Well, we're still
time.
hoping Distill America comes around. Like maybe they'll let us have it in February, and I'll be happy again.
Actually, so hey, here's an idea for you guys, because I was just chatting with some of the guys online about it. And one of the things I thought might be kind of cool, and I mean, is that for profit, or does that go to charity?
I think they're a non-profit, or they're a 501c3. I think is what they are.
But, I mean, I know, and one of the great things about Distill America, not only because it's a really smart idea, having everything that's distilled in America. Yeah, that's great. Big guys, little guys, whiskey, vodkas, gins. I mean, that's great. I love that. That's one of my favorite shows. But I was thinking we could maybe develop a small tasting kit for them, where people sign up and you can pick and choose what spirits you want to taste.
Wow.
And then they go into little bottles, so you get maybe a 30 ml.
Yeah.
Every spirit you ask for, and I don't know, they might have to limit it. I
think they have like 90 people. I was like, I've tried to visit all 90 booths.
Right, but I mean, how many times do you try the same stuff? So maybe you pick new things, and then you get one branded Glencairn glass and maybe a pipette.
Oh,
which is something else we might develop, our own hand blown pipettes.
That's
cool.
But you get all that. Everything will be branded with and it comes in a nice black presentation box, and then you sign up for the sessions too. You can visit various sessions, and you have all the vendors, a session of some kind.
That would be cool. I don't know if they could do it with that many, but that sounds like an awesome idea. And I thought they might lean towards something like that coming up anyways, because there are other people doing virtual events, at least for what they're doing there.
Were all you guys at Distill America last February?
Mike was with me.
I was, yeah.
Ben had to stay in South Carolina.
Oh, Ben.
Yeah.
Well, I was there, and that was right before. It was right as COVID was hitting. I had gone to I had gone to about 3 or 4, 5, 6. 5, let's say 5 different whiskey events from late January to mid-March. No COVID.
Yeah.
COVID free. I'm immune.
That's what my wife pointed out, like in March. She's like, you know what? You were really lucky that happened when it did. And I was like, yeah, well, everything went perfect, so it didn't matter. Like, everyone had a good time. Nothing bad happened. So.
I don't know. I just think there's something. I think walking around with booze makes you immune, makes you the Omega Man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I could be wrong.
No, but like I was saying, thanks everyone in the chat for coming in. Thank you, Martin, for coming on. We look forward to maybe having you on again sometime in the future. To everyone out there, remember, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Tune in.
Shit, wait,
Knowledge.
hold
Oh,
on. No, wait.
yeah.
No, I brought it back. I
Tune
should have
in.
given you a chance to pimp your channel. That was terrible of me. You please do that, Mark.
If you're free tomorrow at noon Central Time, a sip of knowledge at savvy.co. It's with me, Lou Bryson, and Liz Rhodes. Tomorrow's guest is Dr. Rachel Berry from Brown Foreman, all the way from Scotland.
And
So should be joining us. And then you can always check out past episodes on YouTube.
yeah, and if you haven't, you really should, because you guys are doing something very similar where you're interviewing distillers and other people in the industry. It's a great way to get pulled behind the curtain by people who we're trying to get behind the curtain with. So,
Yeah.
So,
We're grabbing them behind the curtain before you guys can grab them behind the curtain.
yeah,
That's our job.
that is your. We're just happy you're here. You're happy you're getting other people.
You guys are stuck with me. That's what you guys get.
That's
All
all
right.
good.
So
Hi, guys.
we'll let everyone go. You guys have a good night. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.